A statement of thanks and bringing to awareness what we've just heard this afternoon. And I'm going to single out one important presentation by Julia from ECMWF. What you just have heard is that something that was started as one initiative at a very experimental level by NOAA with the help of Brigham Young University is now turning into an operational service. And this is a major milestone for the GEO community. And it's also important for all of those on the panel, but also those on the floor, to understand how much work was necessary for this dream to become true. It's a dream come true, but it has been a huge combination of the two of the best, if not the two best, maybe, arguably, the two best weather centers in the world, with extremely qualified people on both sides, in an extreme effort with funding from the World Bank and support from scientists from Brigham Young University. So I think you have to understand first of all, the significance of what you've just heard, of moving from an experimental to an operation, and second, the effort that it takes and the commitment that it takes of the individuals. So in the name of the whole GEO community, I tip my hat to le chapeau bas, as the French say, to all those involved. Angelica is not here. Yana, please convey my thanks to her. Thanks to Julia, to Baudouin, to everybody at CMWF, and all those that make this dream possible. And it's also important that those of you who are on the front of the GEO work program realize what's the difference and how much effort it's really needed to come up with from plans to real operational services. Great job.
Thank you. There's a question back there.
I just would like to give Antje a little bit a correction on the CCI land cover dataset, because I think it's really not good enough for some national applications. For example, the whole regrowth you had due to land abandonment in the former Soviet Union is not captured at all in that dataset. And also I think we have to be careful when there is a global data set to say that this data set is consistent globally, because in some places you have lots of clouds, like in Indonesia, it's full of clouds. So just because of the cloud coverage, it means you have much less scenes available. Therefore, it's not necessarily comparable to another country which has less clouds, just as one example. So I'm just saying, I'm not saying it's bad. I think you have no other alternative at this point in time. But I think there's still a lot of work which needs to be done on getting consistent, reliable global land cover change data sets which can really be used for those applications you mentioned, or are actually a better proxy for those. So just a statement, not a criticism. Thank you.
Any other questions from the floor at this point?
This is Satya Kalluri from NOAA. A couple of comments and a question. First, I'd like to thank all the panelists for doing a wonderful job in their presentations. One comment echoing what was just said about the NOAA Water Center. The traditional water models have been typically very coarse, and they did not rely on a lot of input from satellite data. We have been working very proactively to infuse satellite products like soil moisture, for example, land cover parameters like leaf area index and vegetation dynamics to improve water modeling. The total water modeling, including flooding and evapotranspiration and things like that. And hopefully whatever we do at NOAA and the Water Center will enable GEO to apply it in several other areas. The question I have for Aceh, I'm part of the panel that working with you. A lot of the data sets that are required for land degradation are very local, meaning they require high spatial resolution. And in the previous years, we used to rely heavily on Landsat and Sentinel, now Sentinel type data sets. And it appears that more and more countries are looking for resolutions of 10 meters or higher, which are more in the commercial domain. How do you see countries and organizations like GEO working with commercial entities to enable those technologies and higher data sets, especially those that have copyright restrictions and usage restrictions, especially in developing countries, move forward. Thank you.
Regarding commercial data, I think for most of the countries, I mean, we're working a lot with developing countries as well, but also for most of the countries, this is excluding the use. So as soon as data have to be paid for, the decision is no, we don't use them. Even if, of course, higher resolution might be better for certain applications. But with the Sentinels, I mean, we get down to 10 meters resolution. And for most of the applications for land degradation, at least, I would say, this is already quite a big step, and this is what we can work with already.
Okay, I'd like to pick up a point that was mentioned in several of the presentations concerning the nature of the users that you work with. And in some cases, speakers mentioned about having a policy mandate or direct linkages with international policy organizations or national governments. And I'd like to ask how you find that having such a mandate or these linkages has enabled you to access data from national governments or from other organizations. Would you like to respond?
Yeah, this is direct to this flagship, because how we are working. Actually, there is no a policy mandate from the Secretariat of the Minamata Convention to the GOES Foreign Flagship. But we are working, Nicola is working, because now he has prepared, we have prepared an agreement. We are submitting this agreement to the Conference of Parties through the GEO Secretariat. Each GEO principal, national GEO principal, will receive this agreement with a list of experts on Mercury. And this expert that we already know, but officially the expert will be contacted through the national GEO principal. This is one line, one road. The other one is that through the ad hoc group on the effectiveness, that is a group, a specific group of the convention. We are working to include all the activity of the flagship into the Minamata Convention. So we are working on these two sides.
So for biodiversity, for GEOBON, I don't think that at the global scale, the policy mandate is necessarily open access to more data. Sorry, because the data that we're using, that our working group are using, are already open. However, at the national scale, as I mentioned, we have this effort of doing an inventory of what is already being monitored, what is already being there, and there comes an effort of mobilization of this data. So it's not exactly that it gives us more access to data, but it gives us this mandate at the national level to inventory which data is there and then mobilize it to make it available. In practice, it's still a bit too soon to see to which extent this has been efficient, but this is the process that we have.
Okay, thank you. We'll try to squeeze one last question in here. I'm going to paraphrase one of the Slido questions a little bit. But essentially, based on your understanding of what's being proposed in the concept of the GEO Knowledge Hub. How do you see this as potentially helping your work in your flagship or initiative, or do you think that it's something that is already being covered by existing knowledge hubs in some way? Your thoughts on any of this? Thank you.
I mean, in short, I think it's a tremendously exciting initiative for GEO and the GEO Secretariat, and I really like to commend folks because I think it's really going to provide an opportunity to coalesce and really advance the capabilities for the users out there. So you could see in our presentation for coasts and oceans, we've very much embraced it, and I'd like to thank Gilberto and Craig and the whole team for that initiative, because I think it's an area that's sorely lacking, but there's huge opportunity now, and I think it's providing capabilities and capacity that, at least from my perspective, really aren't out there right now.
Yeah, I guess I would just concur with what Paul said. I think, it creates an exciting possibility. It gives us a chance to kind of reflect on, how to do this, what are the best ways to become this knowledge hub, and, what kinds of information and how do we relay this kind of information. But in the end, I think it'll empower a lot more people, and get a lot more users and interest in going from this data to fit-for-purpose products.
Good. With that, I note that it's 6 o'clock, so we will conclude the session. I'd like to thank all of our presenters here for their very informative and stimulating presentations, and thank you to all the participants out in the room for your questions and your comments during the session. We welcome you back at what time? Tomorrow at 9 o'clock. We start up again, so please be in the room on time so we can keep to the schedule again tomorrow. Thank you very much.